Today we'll see one of the easiest way to send data from your server-side JavaScript to your client-side HTML pages. So that we can do using something called EJS or embedded JavaScript. Right. So let's get straight to it. So this is how your embedded JavaScript would be. It's a basic HTML page wherein you can even add simple JavaScript. It could be if statements or usually your loops. So that is the main thing about EJS, how you're embedding your JavaScript within your HTML files. So previously we had built our calculator app. So if you have not seen that video yet, then make sure to go back to the playlist and look at it or click on the link in the description box. And in that calculator app, we had a server side where firstly, when you click on the localhost 3000 or you want to access the home route, then we were able to send the index.html file. And once you do that, you will see this particular page getting displayed where you can enter your first number, second number, click on calculate, and that would trigger the app to post the content. And then from the home route you can access whatever the data the person had entered in the input fields, and it can do the calculation and then again send back the result. So you can see the result was sent in the same home route, and you can see the calculator, what are the app functionalities, all is disappearing in our result page, right? So if you want, usually what happens in a real world calculator apps, you have something like this. You have a simple calculator and the result is displayed in the same page itself, and you can add some more styles to it as well. So let's see how you can do all that in today's session's live coding part. So let's get to VS Code immediately. Here is a calculator app that we created in the earlier sessions. So if you want to go back and review that video, that will be the best thing. I will link the video in the description box as well. And now suppose you are starting all from scratch and you want to do it all over again. I'll give a quick overview of how you can build this app in this state. So first thing, create a folder calculator app, and then you can create the file index.js, and after that come to your terminal, come to your project directory, and after that you can initialize npm. These set of commands you can add it. First thing, npm init, then you have to press enter, then npm I, you have to download express, press enter, and after that you have body parser, and then you can press enter. And the new thing for this session would be you'll have to also install EJS also. Okay, so now let's go dive into what is actually happening in each of our files. I have my index.html created, a very simple calculator div wherein you have a form whose action is to post to the home route when you click on the submit button. And then in our index.js, what you can see is I have, if you see, already done installed all the dependencies. So I'm initializing all these three dependencies over in my index.js, my server side JavaScript file. So we're here initializing express and then initializing the body parser with these two lines. These are just boilerplate. Just you can save it in any text file in your notepad and then copy and paste it in every project that you create, right? And here you have the path that is accessing my public folder so that my styles are also applied. I have my styles within the public folder, and inside my HTML I have also called that or linked to my style sheet. So coming back, the next thing that we're doing is if I click on the home route, I'm sending the index.html, and then first thing, I'm listening to the port 3000, I'm opening up my local server. So let's run our existing code to see what happens. So for running this entire project, I'm going to use a new functionality, nodemon. So nodemon and then my JavaScript file. So what is nodemon? So if I go and look it up, nodemon is actually an npm package that will allow you to basically develop node applications by automatically restarting when any file change is detected. So that means it will help us to avoid writing node, the file name again and again whenever we make any change to our code. So how do we install that? By just using this command. And you can see it's going to be installed globally in your system path, so you don't have to again and again initialize it in further projects. So I have already installed nodemon, so it will not appear in your dependencies as well. It's usually inside your whole system. So whenever you create any project, you can use nodemon, and it will automatically render, or it will automatically detect any change, and it will restart your server. So you will see what I'm talking about right now. So over here, nodemon index.js, and when I click, so you can see it's actually watching each of the paths, and it will keep on. If I make any small change, if you see, if I write this as in, I make a mistake, but anyway, it's restarting again because I made a change, right? So it automatically will restart. So let's go to localhost 3000, and here you can see that my web page has been rendered and my web app is created. So if I write maybe the first number, second number, and then click on calculate, we have cannot post. So over here, we're actually having a cannot post error that's coming because we do not have any app.post. So let's code up the app.post. Within that, you have post to the home routes, a function where you have a request and a response. And then now the post, we want to get the numbers. So here we have the constant num1 is equal to rec dot body parser we're using. So dot body dot num1. So where do I get this num1? It is actually there in my index.html, right? So that I am tapping into that, and here again constant num2 is also request dot body dot num2. So this is kind of repetitive of what we did, but this is very essential for you to understand how we're going to implement EJS. Okay, so then we basically put in our result is equal to num1 plus num2. A very important thing that I missed is whatever we're going to get from our input field is going to be a string. So we have to convert it to numbers to get proper arithmetic operations like addition done, right? So we convert using this number function. It's a pre-built one. Okay, so this is done, the functionality we have written. Now our aim is to send this to index.html that we displayed, right? So we want, after the calculator that input field, we want the result to be also displayed in the same go. For that, the first thing to implement EJS is, already we have done that, installing EJS, right? A dependency EJS, we've already installed that. Now what we're supposed to do, that in this project folder, we have to create another folder called views. Okay, that's going to be a first step. And the second step, index.html, I'm going to rename it to index.ejs. Nothing changed, it's still an HTML file. So now we can put in this EJS file within views. Okay, so that's a big change that we did to our project directory, and this will enable us to use EJS, that is embed some JavaScript within our HTML code. So here, going back to JavaScript, we want to send this result back, right? So in this HTML file, I will be adding a new div, and I'll give it a class of data or result. Okay, and within this I want to display my result. To do that, the first thing we will do is, once the person posts this particular form, we will calculate the result, and in response we will render the same index.ejs file. Okay, and after that, within that EJS file, we can send in some data as well. So our data will be the result. Okay, so our data that we are sending is the result, that is the summation of the num1 and num2. Okay, So here we have done the big change. Now when you go back, let's see if things work. Okay, so I'm going back. Now when I just go to my file, there itself is saying that index.html is not existing. There's no file or directory. Reason because over here when we get it, we have to change things here as well. Now when we use EJS, we use render, and directly you can write in your name of your file within the views folder. We don't have to write views. Okay, the program will itself understand when you use EJS that we're taking it from the views folder. Okay, so let's now enter, and here you can see the sum calculator is displayed. Now let's put in some numbers. Now the post will happen. So once you post, you can see it's accepting. There's no error that's coming. But once this data, we want to send it over here. So to send it over here, we will use this special EJS tag. Okay. So here is the opening tag for it. And after this, I'm going to write data, because we are passing this object and the key is what we are passing to our EJS. Okay. So render actually takes two parameters. One is the file you want to render. Second one is what data you want to send along with it. Okay. Now here we have data. Now we have to do the closing tag for the same. So here I have the closing tag as well. Let's see if this works. So first I will go for re-rendering or refreshing, and here you can see there's an error that appears. What's the error? When I want to get the file or the program, it's saying that data is not displayed. So data is not defined. Okay. In line 17, there's an issue. Data is not defined. Now here, if you see, initially when I go to localhost 3000, this code will get rendered. Over here, you can see initially we don't have any data that we are passing. So it's giving that error. So for us to neglect that, we can use a if statement. Okay. So for using an if statement, we are writing it as embedded JavaScript. So we will use our opening tag for it, and then I'm going to use it if. Okay. And if locals dot data. Now what does this locals keyword do? The locals keyword will actually check, okay, that from where your HTML file is being rendered, if your data is present or not. Okay, was the data rendered or not? For this case, when we are using or going into the home route, we are not rendering any data. So in that case, this if statement will come as false. Okay. So here you can see I am going to close this as well. Now the way I have written this, within this I want to display this one, right? If you have data, then you have to use or create this div and you have to print out the data. If it's not there, then just neglect it. Okay. But this one will pose an error. The reason why, because over here, you have to close each line of code. Okay. So this is an embedded line, right? So once you write the first line of embedded JavaScript code, you have to close it as well. Here the starting is missing. So that also we will include. Okay. So this is how it will all make sense. Now let's go back, try to refresh. Now you can see the sum calculator is actually displayed. Now I can write maybe 2, 3, calculate, and here you have the answer 5 being displayed. So this is how you can very simply get your server to send some data back to your HTML or your client-side EJS file. Okay, so this was as simple as we could do it. Now in case you want to find the, what you can say, history of the calculations. So to find the history of the calculations, what you can do is this result you can basically put it in an array. So every time you are finding the result, it's going to be put in an array, and you can display that array in your main page. Then you will get something like a history. Okay. So if what I'm saying is not making any sense, it will just make sense when we get into writing the code for it. So over here, what I'm going to do is create an array. as results array. Okay, it's going to be empty for now, and whenever, like initially, I'm just going to send this data as well. Okay, the data would be results array. Okay, so it's a global array that I have created over here, so I can just tap from anywhere. For now we don't need this code. Okay, I'm going to say you how you can try to reduce the redundancy of calling rest or render again and again. Okay, so now this result that we're getting, we can just push it to the results array. Dot push. This is basically an array method. We're going to push the result, right? So once the result is being pushed, what I want to do is I want to display the EJS file, okay, with the data. So instead of just calling this entire thing again, what I can just do, res dot redirect, okay, and I can put in the route, the home route. Now what does this do? So this will actually go and place a get request to the home route, and that will in turn call this particular app.get. Okay, so then again you will have the index.ejs rendered with your newly updated result array, because your result array was updated, right? When the person puts in the data and clicks on the submit, the post is triggered. Once the post is triggered, the logic calculation happens. Once that happens, we are pushing the result to an array so that we can get the history of all our calculations done, and then we are placing the result.redirect that will again go and execute this code, the get request code. And now what will be rendered to your screen? The same index.ejs file, but our data will be updated. Okay, so data will be updated, and that's how you'll be able to send the entire array and get it displayed. Now first, how to display it? Now initially, now our data is already getting displayed. Now the data is an array, so we don't want the entire array to display like that, right? So now when we usually display some array, we usually do it in the form of a list. So I will create a UL, okay, and within that UL I have my li. Okay, now for UL, within the UL itself, I'm going to create a for each loop so that my data, whatever is there, each of the indexes, what of the element in the indexes is displayed one by one. I want to do that. So I'm starting with this particular opening EJS tag. I'm going to use a for each. So I'm going to be like data dot for each. So over here you can see there is a template here, and I'm going to write result. Okay, the result. And so once this happens, now I have to close it. Okay, because my first line have finished. So over here you can see I will use an opening tag and a closing tag as well. Okay, so each line you'll have to need it wherever your JavaScript is there, an opening and a closing tag. Now within this itself, for each of the result, I want an li, so I keep the li over here, and within that again I open EJS. I use equal to sign because I'm going to display the data here. This only without the equal to sign, this is just opening and closing tag that enables you to embed the JavaScript code. If you want to write down or you want to print, okay, or display the value within that particular variable, then we use an equal to sign. Okay, so I want to display the result, so I'm using the equal to and again closing the EJS. So this variable's value will get printed. Okay, yes, so now the result should get printed. Let's go and check. Before that, over here I will also include an h3 as a history, calculation history. Okay, so let's go back, refresh, and here you have calculation history is null, nothing is there, because initially our array, that is your what you can say, results array is empty, so that we are passing it over here, so that's why this empty. Okay, there's nothing that's going to be displayed. Now write 2 and then the second number as 3 and calculate. You can see the first li 5 is there. Now if I go and write 11 3 calculate, you get the answer calculated. So like this you can create your history. Now just by reversing the array, you can get the latest calculation to the top, that is something that you can work on. It's like a small feature that you can add on to your calculator. You can maybe improve the styling and make it your own. Yes, so this is what I wanted to like get all together within this EJS section. Is how you can send the data from your server side to your client side very easily by just embedding JavaScript and using the simple kind of if statements for each to display the result within HTML as well. So with this, we come to the end of this live coding, but for your weekly task, you have to do almost the same thing. You want to do this with your to-do list that you might have created around, I think, in week 1, 2, 3, that kind of time, wherein you had your weekly task was to create or design a to-do list. So what you have to do is add in backend functionalities to that over here. Yeah, you have to add in backend functionality to it and also render list of tasks on the same page. So how what is to be done, I will show you with this implementation of the code, the to-do list code itself. So I'll go back to VS Code, stop this server. Now here I have my to-do list, node-mon index.js. Okay, so this will get started. I'll go back, refresh, and now you can see. Okay, I don't know what happened. Sorry. I think we went in, but we never cd'd into the project folder, right? So to-do list, we have to cd into that, and then node-mon. Okay, so now you'll have to-do list that will come when I refresh. Okay, so here is my to-do list. And here, initially in my code, I have the study in my array. Okay, so if you want to see this index.js code over here, I have the task. Initially, I have put a value study. If you want, you can keep it empty, just like we did for the calculator. We kept the result empty initially. Now, if you look at this over here, if I write in something like maybe think and click on add, it's going to add the task. Okay, you can add, I think initially we had the checkbox as well. You can keep the checkbox, add some more functionality, but the first thing that you have to do, the main thing you have to accomplish is this functionality. When the person enters, things are happening in the server side and it is getting rendered in the client. So I wanted you guys to use EJS and get this weekly task done. So I think that's it for this session. I hope it's all clear. EJ is something that is very simple compared to the other ways of taking data from the server to the client. So now once in the later sessions we introduce databases, you'll realize how easier it is to send the data back to your client and display it in a simple login form or things like that. So guys, that's it for the session. I hope you were able to grasp the most of it. Try to tinker around with the code, and once you are comfortable, then you can come back next week and we'll introduce yet another topic. So thank you for watching, and bye bye.